We are live, guys. Welcome back to Solo Club and the live stream. If you're joining me live, thank you very much. No one's come into the room yet. It's a bit early. It's only been 11 seconds. But equally, if you're watching this in the future, thank you for tuning in. I love doing these live streams. They're one of my favorite parts of the week. It's a nice break from reviewing tech and doing all the other things that come from running this business. But yeah, thank you for joining me. Quick bit of housekeeping as always, two things. If you haven't signed up for the Substack newsletter list yet, the link is down below. Every week on Fridays, I send out a written newsletter, which is a bit like this, really. It's me talking about this industry. And I'm always honest, but I get even more honest sometimes when I'm writing that newsletter because things are on at the top of my mind and I need to get them off my chest. So yeah, check that out. And also, if you haven't signed up to hear about the next academy, which is taking place later this year, this is where I basically will open up the doors to this business and show you how it's run, how it's built, and how you could potentially do it yourself. Like I say, that's happening later this year. I've just had a call with the team behind the academy. I'm still doing it. I'm still the one presenting it and being on the calls for the Q&As. But all the process stuff behind the scenes, all the sales and marketing of the academy is being done by a little team, which I've brought in to do it. And we've just had a call about it. And it's very exciting. So the first thing to say is that it is going to be rebranded. It's not going to be called the Mark Ellis Academy for very good reason. I won't say any more than that, but if you want to find out what it's going to be called, what it's all about, how much it's going to cost, because that's very important, and why I think you should join, click below. Again, there's something in the description somewhere which it is called the Mark Ellis Academy. That will change. But if you go to that website, there's a little box you can put your email address in and find out more about it. So today, guys, I can see we've got people joining the stream. I'm not looking at the comments or the chat window at the moment as usual because I don't want to be distracted, but equally I want you to fill it with questions. Basically hit me with as many questions as you've got. I think today's topic will elicit quite a few questions potentially, some of which I may not be able to answer, but I'll do my best. But equally, if you've just got random questions about content creation and running this sort of business, stick them in the chat window and I will come to them once I've finished waffling about what I'm about to waffle about. In terms of that waffling, I have to be very careful about what I say and reveal in this particular live stream. The reasons for that is because it relates to a relationship or a partnership I have with it's not really a partnership. Let's say a dealing that I've had with a PR company for a brand. And although things have been squared off and ticked off now, I don't want to jeopardize anything. But the experience that I've had with this PR company has been so terrible, so unbelievable, that I need to share it. And if you read my Substack newsletter this morning, I've already talked about it on there. So this is me expanding on it a little bit. But if you haven't read that, then you won't know what I'm talking about, obviously. But I do need to share it. And the reason I want to share it is because, one, it reveals some of the stuff we go through as creators. And it's not all, jumping out of bed and turning the camera on and being wonderfully happy about being a content creator. And we do have to deal with some rubbish sometimes. And this was probably the hardest thing I've had to deal with. The second reason is because it's really important to raise awareness about this. I think if you want to get into this game, or you might be in this game already, you might be watching this as a content creator who's experienced success, but you may not have experienced what I'm about to tell you. It's important you're aware of it because I have learned an awful lot over the last 7 days. In the most annoying way possible. But like anything in business, sometimes you have to go through those fairly horrible periods to learn really gold dust stuff about how to run the business going forward. So hopefully this will be valuable. Now I can't divulge anything in terms of who is involved. The names have been removed completely, basically, just to protect everything. But I can tell you what happened. And this is all to do with the relationship between a PR agency, a brand, and the content creator. It's a very common thing. This is something that happens throughout YouTube and content creation in general. And it works. 9 times out of 10, it works brilliantly. It's a win-win-win situation, if you like. The way that it works is that you have a brand, let's say brand A, let's say brand ABC, that's the classic one, isn't it? So brand ABC has a new product, brand new product that they want to get out there in front of a target audience. Standard marketing, they draw up a marketing campaign. They write their persona, that the person they want to buy this thing that is developed and worked on, and then they go about basically marketing it. They might use TV campaigns, they might use traditional pay-per-click campaigns on Facebook, etc. The other thing they'll probably do, in fact, most of them do if they've got sense, is they'll indulge in, I don't like the word, but we have to use it, influencer marketing. That is the technical term. I have to use that term. But they will use influencer marketing to get word of that product out into very tightly defined audiences that have been nurtured and built by creators like myself. So what happens? It's very rare at that point that the brand will go directly to the creator or to the influencer. Let's just say influencer because it kind of ties in with the way this is all worded. So it's very rare that brand ABC would knock on the door of the creator directly. It does happen occasionally, but it doesn't happen that often. The bigger the brand, the more likely they are to use an agency. And the agency's job is to come in and get the brief from the brand and then go off and find those influencers for the brand. And as I say, this is a very standard practice. I've worked with, I don't know how many, but loads and loads of these agencies over the last 3 and a bit years. And on the whole, they're wonderful. They're brilliant. They're lovely to work with. They're very clear in what they're after. And they're very supportive during the content creation process, the publishing, and all the stuff that happens afterwards. So my experience up until now has been amazing with these guys. But their job, like I say, is to go out and help the brand get message out and amplify, to use a terrible marketing term, amplify the message about that new product. And normally they'll be given a KPI. They'll be given something which, a number, a target they have to hit, whether it be number of views, the amount of engagement, or cold and hard and fast leads through, or even sales of that product. Again, completely standard, nothing wrong with that at all. It puts, it gives them a marker. It gives them something to aim towards. I used to work in marketing, so I get all this stuff. It's all perfectly fine. Apart from when it doesn't work properly and when the PR agency in question uses very questionable tactics to meet those KPIs. And this is what I've kind of encountered recently. So let me have a quick drink of water. Hello to everyone who's jumping on the live stream. Thank you very much for joining me. Remember, stick your questions as they arise into the chat window, and I will approach them after I've been waffling on about this. But yeah, stick them in the chat window, please. So just very quickly, before I explain what happened with me and this particular situation, at the heart of all of this, obviously, we can't ignore this, is the audience. It's you guys. It's people who watch tech reviews, watch stuff on YouTube, consume TikTok content, flick through Instagram, etc. And that audience, none of this works without the audience, but equally, that audience can't be tricked. Audiences are far too smart. We all are. We know we don't all know exactly how this stuff works, but most people who watch content know what they're doing. They know when they're being tricked, or they're watching something that it perhaps can't be trusted. So they can't be tricked, and also equally, their attention needs to be grabbed ethically. There are ways to unethically grab people's attention, as we know, but if you want a proper marketing campaign to work, it goes without saying. It's common sense that you want an influencer to put your product in front of an audience that is firstly real. We don't want them to be bots. We want them to be real people who are watching that influencer. And secondly, we want them to be people who trust that influencer enough to act on their recommendations. Again, this is all obvious stuff, absolutely obvious, but that audience sits at the heart of this. And if you disrespect that audience, or if you look past those things that I've just said, the campaign is never going to work, ever. So you have to put the audience first, basically. So what happened recently, and again, I can't mention any names, I can't put anything around this other than being very vague about what's happened. I engaged with an agency for a brand, and it was a very standard campaign. It was a YouTube video that needed creating. And to cut a very long story short, the video was created. It was a bit backwards and forth. The process of creating that video was a bit long-winded, but that can happen. I've got no problems with that, really. But we got it done. We got it published. And that was that. And normally that is then when you invoice and you keep an eye on the video just to see how it's performing. And obviously the agency then goes back to the brand and says, look, we've got the video's live. Mark's done this. We'll keep you posted with how it's performing. What happened with this particular video is that about 24 hours after it going live, it was starting to perform very suspiciously, very suspiciously. And what I mean by that is that it was drawing in a very big audience, a strangely big audience for the video that it was. I wasn't expecting this video to completely tank, but I definitely wasn't expecting it to perform as it did. And at one point, it was bringing in 2,000 views an hour. Excuse me. To put that in context, most videos that I publish on Mark Ellis Reviews don't do that. Some of the really, the bangers as we call them, they can draw in that many views, but it's very rare that we get that many coming through at once. And particularly on a video, like I say, that's fairly unlikely to draw in that sort of audience. It immediately raised a red flag. And what raised another red flag was the fact that the views weren't creating any engagement. So the views were coming in and not really watching the video. They were just disappearing. Now, you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to start to put 2 and 2 together and immediately come up with 4. These views didn't seem to be legitimate. They were way too consistent in how many were coming through. And because they weren't watching the video, weren't engaging with it, weren't leaving comments, weren't doing anything that remotely suggests these are potentially real people, leads you to kind of come to the conclusion that they're not real people. These looked like purchased views. Now, the problem with this, as someone who's running a YouTube channel, is that I'm aware that YouTube doesn't like that. And actually, YouTube has a policy for fake engagement. You can Google it, you can find it very easily, and it makes total sense. They have a page that says, "Please do not buy views. Do not do anything basically that artificially brings in views, comments, or engagement." And if you do that, they make it very clear your YouTube channel could be suspended. Now, there's a few levels of this. You can have a strike, and a strike is when YouTube wags its finger at you and says, you don't do that. You get 1 strike, not great, but if you get 3 strikes, you're gone. Basically, your channel is shut down, turned off, deleted, finished. And if you're running a business, your business goes with it, obviously. So not great. So I didn't want to get a strike, but equally that policy page about fake engagement didn't mention strikes. It literally has a line that says something like your YouTube channel might be suspended. So there's equally a chance that you may skip that 3-strike rule and just be turned off entirely. Basically, having those fake views come onto my YouTube channel at that rate was in danger of pulling my entire channel down and my business with it. So this was all happening on Saturday last week, which isn't ideal. And I can say that because that video isn't there anymore. So there's no way you can work out which video this was, thankfully. There's no trace back to it because it's not there anymore. But basically, it was happening on a Saturday when I was with my family. I was supposed to be having, after a very busy time in Berlin. Oh, by the way, I've got my luggage back. My luggage arrived at my house today, so I've got everything back, which is amazing. I'm wearing clothes that I should have been wearing in Berlin, but have been rolling around the world over the last 2 weeks. So that's good news. But I'd been through all that stuff and had a very busy couple of weeks, and I'd basically earmarked last weekend to go and see the family, to go to my sister's. My girlfriend was doing her college course, so I took my 15-month-old son Harrison, drove up to Shropshire, excited about not working for a change and seeing the family. And this all kicked off during that period, to the point where I was lying there, and sounds strange, I was putting Harrison down. It was his nap time, and he was lying on my chest. And any parents watching this will know how precious those moments are. I'm fully aware that they won't last for long. He's going to get to the stage where he has no interest in doing that. He just wants to play his PlayStation. But he's at the age now where he does fall asleep on you, and it's just the most amazing thing ever. So if you can imagine me lying there with my son on my chest, and what I'm doing with my other hand is texting this company, this PR company, going through this horrendous thing with me basically saying, I have to take this video down. It's in danger of bringing my channel down. And this thing going backwards and forwards, some horrible legal speak going, horrible, the most horrible thing ever. But it did get to the stage where I had to make a proactive decision to delete the video. So I took the video down, informed them and said, look, I don't like doing this, but equally I have to think about my business. If these views keep coming through, I could get a strike from YouTube. It could get taken down. It's very bad news for my channel. I know it's not ideal at the weekend, but I have to make the right decision for my channel. If you can prove that those views are coming legitimately into my channel from something like a Facebook ad campaign or Instagram ad campaign, I will put it back up. No questions asked. We all know that's not what was happening. But to cut a very long story short, this carried on this week, and we resolved it. I won't say how we resolved it because that might give away who it relates to. And like I said, I don't want to put myself in any jeopardy with this. The things have been ticked off, the bill's been paid, and all that sort of thing. So again, it's kind of rounded off now. But this is, I think, as I said at the start of this live stream, this is the first time I've ever experienced anything like this, and it was frightening. It was genuinely scary because one, I don't want my YouTube channel to disappear, and two, there was a lot, like I say, a lot of fairly nasty legal speak going on with this because a contract had been signed, and technically, you could argue, again, I'm not saying I did or didn't, but you could argue that I potentially may have broken the contract by bringing the video down. But I was in such a difficult position, and I had no choice but to do it. It's one of those moments as a business person, though, where you have to think on your feet and think about the ultimate priority here. Is it the business or is it this video for brand ABC? They're not actually called brand ABCs, you know. And that's kind of what happened over the last 7 days. And like I say, it's all been kind of ticked off and paid off and done now. And the offending video is not there anymore. So yeah, it's been a real learning curve for me. And I think the one thing to say, again, as I mentioned at the start of this live stream, it's important people are aware of this. If you're coming into this industry as a creator and you want to work with brands and get sponsors and all that sort of stuff, you have to have your wits about you. For instance, I now have things in my contract. I didn't sign unfortunately, again, a learning curve, a lesson with this one. I signed their contract. They didn't sign my own contract. And I didn't ask for anything to be put into the contract. So big lesson learned there. But equally, it's taught me that I need a few things in my own contract. So I've modified my sponsor contract going forwards. At some point, I will share all this, and as part of the academy, we will go into serious detail on this, and those contracts will be made available as templates. But yeah, it's taught me that I need a few things in there that weren't in there before. But equally, I don't want to scare you because this is incredibly rare. So in just over 3 years of doing this, I've never experienced anything like this. I've never published a video where suddenly views have come out of nowhere, and this is, I mean, one of my creator friends, he was saying it's unbelievable how brash they were and how obvious they were with it. You know, if they were just trickling views through, perhaps 500 every day or something, you could almost get away with that, and it probably wouldn't impact. It probably wouldn't trigger YouTube's warning system. But to be doing it at such a rate, 2,000 views every hour, smashing through to this video, is just so obvious, particularly when, like I mentioned earlier, then they're not engaging with the video. And again, it's no benefit to the brand. And you would question, wouldn't you, if the brand in question knew about this tactic? But why on earth, going back to the strategy that the brands put into these things, why on earth would you pay for fake views to hit a YouTube video about your product or about your campaign or about your big news? You know, why would you do that? You want real people, real nurtured people who are part of a community for the creator to watch stuff about your thing. But it's, again, just to reiterate, it's incredibly rare. I've learned from this, and it won't happen again. Well, you can never say never, obviously, but I've put things in place now to protect this, protect the business from this. But yeah, it's a lesson, and I hope it's one that will help you as well, guys. I really, really do, because it was not a nice thing to go through whatsoever. Right, we haven't got a huge number of people on, but those of you who are here, who have been who've been sticking by, thank you. Appreciate it. Mark Gilroy, from I had no idea you were in York, Mark. That's I love York. It's a very nice place. I have no connection with York at all, but it's just a very nice place. But yeah, we've conversed quite a bit on Twitter, or X as it's known. Nice to have you on. Papa Fuzz, is that how you pronounce your name? I hope it is. And Kevin Hawthorne from Lakeland, Florida. Always incredibly jealous of Kevin because he lives in Florida and the weather's always lovely there most of the time. I think maybe it's not. Kevin, you have to tell me. Right, there's not many of you, but let's just hit me with a few questions. We've got 4 people on at the moment, so it's not the busiest live stream. But yeah, hit me with a few questions. So Mark is saying, excuse me. Did you get any hint that something was off before the weird views appeared? Sounds like a really good learn. That's a really good question, and I've been asking myself that, as you can imagine. Were there any red flags? And I think there might have been 2 red flags with hindsight. And I've thought a lot about this, and again, this is a really good lesson. One of them is that, and I kind of alluded to this earlier. If you spotted what I mentioned earlier, most of the communication was for this dealing was done via WhatsApp, which isn't completely unusual. Occasionally, I deal on WhatsApp with people, with brands and PR agencies, but it was fairly clear that was the method by which to work with these guys. I mean, I suppose it's odd from someone who comes from a background of dealing fairly traditionally with people on email and phone and stuff and video calls. To me, dealing with a business contact via WhatsApp is still a bit odd, but it's encrypted. You can export the chat. There's a full record of the thing that you've had there, so it's not really any different to email. It's just more immediate, obviously. So I think with hindsight, maybe the WhatsApp thing and the insistence on using WhatsApp was perhaps a red flag. The other slight red flag, I guess, is the fact that it was. Again, I alluded to this earlier. It was quite a drawn-out production process. There was lots of going backwards and forwards, lots of reapprovals, and a few things changing that hadn't been asked for originally. That isn't massively unusual. We do have to deal with that occasionally. I don't normally mind that. It can be frustrating sometimes, and sometimes you do have to put your foot down and say, no, this wasn't part of the original contract. You're getting this video as it is. But the fact that, again, would I have linked that to this fake views thing? Probably not. It's like I say, Mark, it's such an unusual. It was such a battering of views coming through. It was just so obvious that something wasn't right. But yeah, I suppose they're the only things really that I could maybe have seen as red flags in the past. But yeah, it's definitely a good learn. Good way of putting it. Any other questions, guys? We are down to bare bones now. This might have been the lowest attendance ever. Oh, we've got 3 now. Lowest attendance ever on a live stream for Solo Club. Interestingly, I did a live stream on the Mark Ellis Reviews channel on the evening of the iPhone 15 announcement, and I think we peaked at something like 308 viewers or something, which gives you an idea of what you can do with live streams if you have the audience. So at the moment, this Solo Club channel is, I think we've got 1,280 subscribers. So we've gone past the 1,000, the 1,000 sub thing, line in the sand, if you like. Haven't got the 4,000 hours of watch time yet for the partner program. But this is it's a very small channel. I love it to death, and I've got big plans for it. But it is a small channel. Whereas the Mark Ellis Reviews channel, obviously with 115 or whatever 1,000 subscribers, that immediately the live stream it just took off amazingly. I got more trolls on that, as you probably guess. But yeah, it's interesting to see that the disparity between 2 very different sized channels. What's nice though about this one in particular, it's much easier to manage partly because there's less people, but also you're all lovely. There aren't, well, I should touch wood when I say this, but we haven't had any trolls on this one yet, so it's a nicer one to moderate, put it that way. Hello, Walter Paul. Welcome on board. One thing I will mention, which is definitely worth that briefly kind of giving you some insight into, is that I have this week onboarded a general manager. His name's Niall. He lives 30 minutes away from the studio, so he's nice and nearby if he needs to come in. But he's now working for me on it's a what's the best way to put it? It's a part-time role, but it's probably about 2/3 time, if you like, maybe-ish. But I have full kind of intention to make it much more than that. I wanted to ease him in, really. And within the last 5 days of him onboarding, as we say, and doing stuff for me, immediately he's had a huge impact. I can already feel some of the weight lifting from my shoulders. And to give you an idea of what he's doing a lot of the. He's basically taking care, as the name suggests, general, the title, general manager. He's taking care of a lot of the process-driven stuff behind the scenes. So, the process for taking a video from a blog post to a video and then to short form content and back again. He's doing all of that for me now. He's also a brilliant editor. If you saw the BYD Instagram post that I put up during the week, he edited that, and he did an amazing job in a very short amount of time. But that's not really his main role. I don't want to kind of get him bogged down in editing. It's more about managing the channel and working with the small team that I've got doing stuff for me, and just taking me out of that process. So what I end up doing, which is what I should be doing, is making content and thinking about the strategy. And you can't do that properly and to the best of your ability and ensure that the business grows if you're doing all of the little nitty gritty stuff and backwards and forwards things. So Niall has been, I don't know if you're watching this, Niall, but he's been a breath of fresh air, and I'm just incredibly excited about the next few weeks, carrying on getting him involved. Mark, on the topic of agencies for brands / collabs, etc., at what point would you recommend working with one? And do you remember weighing up the decision to do that versus managing brand relationships directly? Quite often, Mark, you don't have a choice. So the partnerships that I'm referring to here are the ones that have come to me. So these are kind of emails that come in from, again, PR agency ABC, who says we're working with brand ABC, and we've been tasked with looking for people to review this product or do a demonstration of this product, etc. So they're basically a barrier between you and the brand. At that point, you just work with the PR agency. And if I had to put a number on it, in fact, I'm thinking about this. The thing is, with Mark Ellis Reviews, I work with 2 or 3 fairly big brands and then lots of smaller brands. And those smaller brands, you do work with them directly because they don't really have the budgets to have PR companies doing things for them. So for me, it's probably 50-50 in terms of dealing directly with brands, smaller brands. There's one big brand that I do deal with directly, but 50-50 with that, and the other 50% is working through PR agencies. So it's more a case of working with what you sent, basically. What you might be referring to, Mark, is that there are YouTuber agencies, which works a bit differently. So you basically go to the YouTuber agency, you sign up as a member of their talent, as they say, and they then farm you out, basically, and they try and get collaborations for you and partnerships with brands. And to do that, they take a cut, obviously. I've looked at that. I've had offers from these kind of managed PR agency type things, and I've always not bothered. It's always felt to me, because what's happened while I've been weighing up those types of company, I've been getting emails through anyway. So passively things are coming through, and enough stuff is coming through for me to deal with. And equally, I've reached out directly to brands to try and get review units or try and work out sponsorship partnerships. And more often than not, it will be a PR company that comes back to you. So they are definitely the gatekeepers. I think that kind of answers your question, Mark, but let me know if not. Paul, hi, Paul Rankin. Paul is a fellow YouTuber. I don't know if you've been on before, Paul, but thanks for jumping on. And as I always say, if you've got a YouTube channel and you want to share it, stick it in the chat. No, there's no problem with that on here. Just to promote yourself, you take the opportunity. In fact, Paul, we would have met in Paris. I think you went to Paris and met Patrick Rambles. I couldn't make it because I was somewhere else, but we missed out on that, unfortunately. We didn't get a chance to say hello. Guys, keep the questions coming. Mark is cracking on with it with the questions, which is awesome. But if anyone else wants to get involved, please do. Okay, I got it right. That's good. Yeah, YouTube agencies who take the cut. I mean, to be fair, even the agencies like the ones I've been talking about today, they obviously take a cut, but you never see it, so you don't know what percentage it is. Basically, when it in the process of having a brand who then employs a PR agency to reach out to influencers. As the influencers, we don't have any idea what the relationship is between the brand and the PR agency. It's not our business. There's a contract between them. We don't have the right to find out what it is. But if I quote X amount for a sponsorship, give that to the PR agency, they're obviously not then going to the brand and saying, he's quoted this much. They're putting their bit on top of it. That's how they make a profit. Again, standard practice. I've got no problem with that. They need to make some money. And equally, they've brought that brand to me, so they deserve something. How much they're making is anyone's guess. We can all have a a stab in the dark at what they might be making, but I'd guess it's normally quite a significant chunk on top. Paul, found this channel after your live stream the other night with the lads. Hopefully, I'll catch you at the next one. It was a great event. Yeah, so Paul's referring to the Mark Ellis review. I always point over there because that's where most of the Mark Ellis review set is. But the Mark Ellis reviews live stream that I did, I did it with Patrick Rambles and Alex Gear and Tech, both of whom have YouTube channels. Just Google them, you'll find them very quickly. And Rob from the 8 or 16 podcast. Again, if you haven't heard the 8 or 16 podcast, go and check it out. It's me and Rob acting like two old farts, as we say, moaning about tech, and hope people seem to like it. But yeah, it was a collaboration. At first, for that live stream, I was going to do it on my own and just take questions about the iPhone 15 event. And then I spoke to Patrick and Alex and Rob and said, why don't we just do it together? It's normally better if there's more than one of you. And again, it's a collaboration. And in the interest of sharing how this all works, the idea really is that, well, one, it's nice to do it with those people, with those guys, but equally it's a chance for them to grab some of my audience and vice versa. It's a classic collaboration strategy, and it worked really well. Any other questions, guys? Am I gonna finish earlier today? It looks like we might do, given how small the room is, how small but wonderfully formed the room is. I might need to find a way of doing these a bit later on in the day, because I appreciate it is a bit early for a lot of regions, particularly over in the States. I mean, it's 4:30 in the afternoon here, and equally actually in the UK, you're probably working. You probably haven't got time to sit there and watch me ramble on about YouTube. Don Covin. I think that's a new name. I don't recognise that. Welcome on board. Were they forced to be there because of some partnership deal? Are you referring to Patrick and Alex? They weren't. It wasn't a sponsored video. But if that's what you're referring to, no. They came on purely out of their goodwill. They weren't forced for any reason at all. Although someone did comment and said something like, "Why are the two guys at the bottom of the screen looking so depressed and miserable?" It's a hard watch because it's like they don't want to be there. As though I think the bottom of the screen was Rob and Patrick. It was this commenter was troll was basically saying, almost making out that I'd held them against their will on this live stream, which obviously I hadn't. But yeah, that was the one weird troll comment we got. Any questions about brands, guys, or sponsorship stuff, or I don't know, lost luggage? What else could we talk about? Any questions? Anything that's at your top of your mind? You don't have to ask a question, obviously, but I'm willing to. There's not much you can ask that I can't answer, if that makes sense, unless it relates to a sponsorship agreement or something where I've signed a bit of paper and if I let the cat out of the bag, I'm in trouble, which is why I've had to be so vague really about what's been happening, about the stuff I talked about earlier. I do want to reiterate as well, guys. I think I've done a few of these live streams recently where I've talked about issues within the industry. So I think challenges that I've had to meet and overcome in some way. And the reason I do that again is because I want to, warts and all, I want to show you what this industry is like. But I'm conscious that there's been probably more negative things than good things recently, and I'll address that balance over the next few weeks. But it's still the best thing ever. This job is the best thing ever. I absolutely love it. I wouldn't change it for the world. I'd never want to go back to what I was doing before or before that, ever. Trust me. It's just the best thing ever. It really, really is. Guys, I think we might wrap up a bit earlier because, like I say, I think we've reached the end of the questions, and I'll give you another 60 seconds to ask me a question. But and while I'm doing that, another quick reminder about the Substack newsletter. If you haven't signed up, there's a link down below. You can get my written ramblings every Friday morning. And that's grown really nicely. So if you have signed up already, thank you very much. I love writing those newsletters. It's a real kind of release for me, as are these live streams. And the other thing is the Academy. So if you missed this at the start of the video, the Academy, which is taking place later this year, which is where I open up the doors to this business, and not, theoretically and metaphorically rather, and show you what goes on behind the scenes and reveal my processes and hopefully give you enough advice and guidance to do the same thing yourself. That is taking place, it's cohort based, it's taking place later this year. It's going to be a drip fed academy. So the curriculum, for want of a better phrase, I don't want it to sound too school like, but the course material, if you like, will be delivered over the course of a number of weeks. But there will also be a Discord server, which exists at the moment. People are in there already because I ran the Medium Academy early this year. Those guys get access automatically to the new academy. Lucky them. So there's access to a Discord server, but also a live Q&A with me every month. So you'll get access to me to ask questions about the stuff that I've sent you in terms of the course. I can't wait to kick it off. And like I mentioned earlier, we do have a team working on this. I'm taking this seriously, but I'm investing quite a bit in this to get it right. And I can't wait. So if you want to hear, there's no commitment here at all, but if you want to hear more about the Academy as it develops, particularly the rebranding, it's not going to be called the Mark Ellis Academy anymore. I won't explain why. I'll kind of reveal that over the next few weeks. But if you want to hear about that and hear about how to sign up if you want to eventually, just click that link below to the Academy page and pop in your email address, and we'll keep you updated. I've got one question here. Okay, not content creator related, but I won't hold that against you, Don. I hope your name is Don, or is it Don? Is Don Covin that wouldn't be your entire first name, would it? I'm guessing that's both your name and your surname. I'm digging a massive hole. Sorry. On to your question. This isn't content creator related, but I'll let you off. Was I expecting more from the Ultra 2, which is obviously the Apple Watch Ultra 2, which was launched or announced yesterday? Was it yesterday, the day before? When was it? This is Friday now, isn't it? No, it was it Tuesday? It was ages ago, wasn't it? Anyway, what do I think about it? What was I expecting more? I was hoping for a black one. I was desperate for a black titanium Apple Watch Ultra. I think making it, the standard color is nice. It looks like a very nice bit of kit, but just the idea of having a black one, a matte black one, would have been amazing. But they didn't do that. I wanted more battery life. They gave us a bit more battery life on the low power mode, but low power mode for me is a last ditch thing. It's the thing that you turn on and where you don't worry too much about what it's not doing when low power mode is running. But it's got the same 36 hours of battery life as the previous generation. It's got the S9 chip, the new chip, which lets you do that gesture thing a bit more accurately, which isn't a new thing, by the way. I was expecting a bit more, but actually that's not fair. I wasn't expecting more because this was always going to be a moderate update to the Apple Watch Ultra. I just wish some of that moderate updating had been a new color and a bit more improvement on the standard 36 hours of battery life. So it was a bit of a shame. And like I say, I'm not going to be reviewing it. I've made that decision not to review it. I will stick by that. People are already saying to me in the comments, "Oh yeah, you'll be back along in 2 weeks' time, saying with a video titled Why I Decided to Buy the Apple Watch Ultra 2." I'm not buying it. I'm skipping it this year. Paul, if I have signed a deal with a company who, from the sounds of it, have never done a contract, after the content was made, they asked for the stock footage I filmed, should I hand it over? No, definitely not. So have you signed if I signed a deal with a company who, I'm not sure if you mean that you haven't got whether or not you've got a contract between them, Paul, but as Mark has said very clearly in the chat, um, anything you create, Paul, so any content you create, this content I'm creating now is mine. So if someone takes this and does something with it, they are going again. They're stealing my intellectual property and using it for their own thing, which is not a good thing at all. But particularly if you are creating content for a brand and they say that the thing to look out for actually in any contract is the use of the content in perpetuity. What's the word? Basically forever. I can never get that word right. I'm not going to try and say it again, but basically, look for any mention that they have the right to reuse your content, whether forever or just for the next 6 months. If they're doing that, they should pay you more because they're getting to use the content you've created for their own means, and that ain't right at all. So yeah, if they ask for the stock footage, they have to pay for it. And actually, it should be expensive because again, it's your intellectual property. It's stuff you've created. They haven't had to create it themselves, and they'll use it to sell their products. And they shouldn't get that for free because that doesn't work in any language. So yeah, don't fall foul of that, Paul. I probably have fallen foul of it myself when I first started. It's a very easy thing to to kind of overlook and not think about, but it's your stuff. So yeah, please do. You have a contract, but the agency you work on their behalf have asked for the stock. Yeah, no, immediately, Paul. I would say this wasn't part of the. Well, double check the contract. Like I say, if there's something in there about you being able to do that and you've signed it, that's a different thing, obviously. But if you look at the contract and there's no mention of them keeping or retaining rights to it or anything, you should always retain rights to it. But if there's no mention of them having the ability to repurpose it and republish it and all that sort of stuff, then go back to them and say this was not part of the original contract. If you want to reuse it, if you want to have that content and do things with it, we'll need to sign a new contract, and it is going to cost you. No problem, Paul. This is why I'm doing this, because I was talking to another fellow creator in Berlin last week at IFA, and we were saying, because we were sharing stories about brands and contracts and things that we've had. Again, not breaking any contracts in doing that. It was all about past experiences. But equally, we were talking about budgets and things we're charging, amounts we're charging for sponsorships. And we all said we have to keep doing this. Gatekeeping that stuff doesn't make any sense because what's that phrase? Rising tides float all boats, or whatever it's called. That's probably not it. You know what I mean? If we're all quoting roughly the same rates, that's good for everyone because it raises the. I've said this a lot on these live streams. That raises the value of creators overall, and it's the same thing with stuff like this. And, the question that Paul asked is brilliant because it's so easy to fall foul of that, and it's not your fault if you do. It's unfortunately brands and PR companies trying their level best to get as much out of you as possible, and that one in particular is very very naughty because they know what they're doing. If there's something, if there's a line in the contract which says we get access to your content forever, we can use it as much as we want, that's bad news. To give you another example of this, I can't mention the brand. I've had dealings with a very big brand recently where they wanted to use my stuff. They basically they liked the review that I did of their product. I hadn't worked with them. They came out of the blue and said, look, we've seen your video about product X and we'd love to feature it on the landing page for that product or a clip of it or something. I thought, great. And to be honest, if I was an inexperienced content creator / reviewer, I'd think, wow, it's this massive brand. It's going to be on their webpage. It's great for my business. It gets me in front of people. I might have just said at that stage, yes, please, go for it. Help yourself, do it. But no, I've got a bit more about me. I've got a bit more experience under the belt than that. And I have been in business for quite a long time. So I thought, okay, I'd love that. That would be great. But then I started to think about it strategically and thought, well, actually, me being on that web page for that product, which is a huge product, isn't a massive. How does that benefit me? People aren't going to look at that product page and then see this guy, this guy from Northampton talking about it and think, oh, I'll go and follow him on YouTube. They might watch a bit of that video, but they're far more interested in the product. So me being on that web page, it's a bit of a tick box, but nothing. There's no real benefit to the business. So there was that. So in terms of it being mutually beneficial, that wasn't the case at all. And equally, it's my stuff. So going back to Paul's question, that the thing they wanted to use was mine. It was my content. I created it. I owned it. So I went back and said, look, I'd love to be on that page. Obviously, it sounds great. I'm flattered that you want to put me on there, but do you have a budget for this? And they came back and said, yes, we do. I won't mention the figure, obviously, just in case, because contracts and things. But they came back with a figure that made sense and was perfectly fine. I said, great, let's do it. And we signed contracts, and the rest is history. It's not on that page yet, but it's, brilliant. Yeah, if I hadn't done that, then I wouldn't have been paid for it, and I should have been paid for it. So always be careful with that. Paul says it was a strange situation. It started with the agency, then the brand came to me directly, but the agency still lingered in the background waiting to pounce. That is weird. Because like I mentioned earlier, normally the agency and the brand will have, I guess, a pretty tight relationship, a very tight partnership, and a very tight contract between them. And normally I would get, I don't know for definite, but I would guess that contract has something in it about the brand not approaching the creators directly, and equally the creators not approaching the brand directly, going around the PR company. So that is a weird situation, Paul. But again, it just raises flags, doesn't it? It raises someone asked me, I can't think who it was it Mark who asked me earlier about were there any red flags with the thing that I experienced, and there were definitely, and with hindsight you start to notice them. But the more you do this, and the more kind of the more variety of PR agencies and brands that you work with, you start to figure out the ones that are just from the start brilliant and genuine and legitimate and all that stuff, and do things by the book as they should. But then you start to spot red flags, things that just aren't quite right. And I think with this kind of stuff, Paul, you just have to use your intuition. I've always done this with business. I've not always got it right, but I've always one of my bosses years ago, the best advice he gave me was follow your nose. And I apply that to most things, whether it be going for that opportunity or working with that brand or making that video or going to that event or buying that thing for the business. If my nose is kind of pointing in that direction, I'm thinking, yeah, that's the right thing to do. I just do it. I follow my nose. And the same thing with this kind of stuff. If my nose is kind of sniffing around and it's thinking, something not right here, you're probably right. And even if you're not right, it's better to be safe than sorry with this sort of stuff, because if things go wrong, as I nearly experienced last weekend, if things go wrong with a brand slash PR agency slash content creator or influencer relationship, it can go very wrong. And normally the person that's going to come off the worst is probably the content creator, because it's your reputation. You're the end point. You're the person, and your channel is the thing that has put that thing, that message, that product, whatever it is, you've put that out at the end of the day. So that's the last thing the audience sees. The audience doesn't care. The audience has no idea that all this stuff is going on behind the scenes. All they see is the video and you talking about whatever it is. So it always falls badly on you, or reflects badly on you. So if you're not sure, step aside, I think. The brand actually sent me the contract. So what was the PR agency doing then? So from the sounds of it, you've got this direct. I appreciate you probably can't say everything, Paul, like I've been saying, but I'm trying to work this out. I want to work this out. Start with the agency and the brand. So I guess you started talking to the agency, and then the brand got involved. So it's as though the brand circumnavigated the agency, which originally they would have employed the agency to contact you, which is strange, but they decided to go around the agency, and then the brand sent you the contract, which then immediately pushes the agency out. I mean, the agency doesn't need to be there anymore. If you're working directly with the brand, but then you're left with this agency, like you say, sniffing around in the background, asking for footage and stuff. Really weird, really strange. I thought the one that I dealt with was odd. Never ceases to amaze me, this industry. And again, these things are relatively rare, but it's good to chat it through. I can't work that out, Paul. You've stumped me. Well, you haven't, but they've stumped me there with that. Really strange. we're getting more people on now, just as I was thinking about wrapping it up. But well, firstly, welcome, guys. Thank you for joining. If you've got questions, you have missed me potentially talking about something fairly interesting, which will be on the. The nice thing about these videos, you can rewatch them after a few hours. YouTube turns them into regular YouTube videos, and you can go back and watch them. So if you missed that, I'd recommend watching it. Here we go. More. Let's try and work out what's going on with Paul. The agency started the conversation, but then the brand. Then the brand came to me about a week later, dealt with the brand for a week afterwards, and then the agency came back around. Something clearly is going on behind the scenes between that agency and the brand. And you're kind of being caught in the middle of it. But that's not a good look. I've not experienced that before. Even with the thing that I was going through recently, I've not experienced that before. It's not a good look for either of those entities, whether it's the brand or the agency. They don't look like they're doing joined up thinking, and you shouldn't be. I've never had that. I've never had both of them getting in touch and clashing. That's just weird, really strange. I mean, if it was me, I don't know how far you've got with it, but I'd probably say, look, who should I be dealing with here? Whose contract am I signing? And then really comb through that contract, comb through it. I'm going to comb through every contract that comes through to me. Funny enough, I had a contract come through today to review. And if what had happened recently hadn't happened, I think I'd have signed it today. But there were a few things missing based on the learnings from the last few days, which I've asked to be put in, which I think are going to be put in, which again just illustrates how important it is to learn through these tough things that we have to experience. They're actually a good thing because they teach you a lot of stuff. Paul, sorry, it's my fault. You're stuck here now, though. Yeah, I genuinely can't get to the bottom of it, Paul. Really, really strange. I'd love to know more, though. If you can ever tell us more about it, then please do. Any more questions, guys? Technically, we've got another 9 minutes, really. I'm normally on this for an hour. So you've got me for another 9 minutes. What do you want to ask me? We've got 8 people on now. We've had 3 for about the last 45 minutes. So thank you if you've stuck by, and thank you if you've just joined us. But yeah, any other questions? There's one subject that always gets people talking. It's sponsorships and these kind of brand partnerships. It fascinates people. It fascinates me. Still does. I've been doing this for a little while now, but it still absolutely fascinates me how it works and some of the really interesting things that happen. It's just a shame you have to be so careful. Well, not a shame. Obviously, you have to be careful what you say because a lot of this is tied up in NDAs and agreements and things. I wish I could tell you more. Trust me, there are certain things that I wish I could have told you today, but I can't. Maybe one day I'll write a book about it when I'm retired and it doesn't matter anymore, and said PR agencies aren't in existence anymore. Maybe I'll write a book about it and or film a long form YouTube video about it before I quit completely. Thanks, Paul. Very kind words. Thank you very much. I'm going to sign off, guys. I think, yeah, it's been a good day for lots of reasons. One, mainly because I've got my luggage back and I've got my, not to put too fine a point on it, my underpants back. I had some replacements, by the way. I didn't do without them for that long. Again, way too much information. But guys, thank you so much for joining me on this Friday. We're going into a very busy 2 weeks, let's say, with iPhone content, but these live streams will continue. I promise. I say this every week, and I haven't done it yet. I will experiment with the timings of these. I'll do a later one soon as well, just to see how we get on. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, enjoy those baby snuggles. They are. I mean, let's finish on that. Actually, it is. I mean, I'm a first-time dad. Harrison is my first and only child, and like I say, he's only 15 months old. He's not even 2 years old yet, so he's still at that incredibly cute state. Like the level of cuteness with him is just, and to a degree, some of the tantrums he throws. He doesn't do it very often, but he's at that stage where he can't express his emotions. He's not really talking yet. He can walk. All he can do is walk about and throw things around and cry if he's hungry and all that sort of stuff. So that's an experience. But thankfully, he doesn't do it too often. But he is the level of cuteness he's at the minute is just off the charts. And again, any parents watching this, I assume you are, Mark. you'll know what it's like. You get home, and the best thing you ever see, the best thing you see all day, bar none, is that little smile. Yeah, he made, as always, he made this week bearable, even though I was having to deal with that horrible situation. But it's all finished. That's all done. My luggage is back. We have some very exciting news coming about the academy, which is great. And I've got my right-hand man, Niall, on board. So it's an exciting time for this business. Mark, you've got a 5 and a 2-year-old. You must have your hands full, but I bet it's amazing. So it's a very exciting time for this business, and I'll be sharing it all with you guys. So remember, subscribe to the Substack newsletter, and if you want to find out more about the Academy, stick your email address into that webpage. And in the meantime, guys, have a fantastic weekend. Thanks for joining me live if you have. Thanks for watching this in the future. And that's me signing off. I'll catch you next week. Cheers, guys.